Hi guys, welcome to the channel. In this one you're going to see me do a 1500 watt conversion on the Trek Marlin 5, which is here, and this is the 1500 watt hub motor. It's basically on a wheel, motor's in the middle, comes with a bunch of accessories. That's going to be the controller, that's the throttle, twist throttle, full twist throttle. Also comes with some cable tidies, a rotor, a pedal assist sensor, some cable ties, brake cut off switches, and what we got here, we've got an SW900 display, couple of washers to fit on the inside bit of the display to go around the handlebars. Comes with a inner tube. Went for the MTX wheel, which is a little bit more expensive, but it says that it's a lot better to have, so yeah. Okay, enjoy the build. I'm going to try and take it step by step, so anyone out there trying to do a build for themselves, hopefully you can follow the step that I'm going to take here and do one yourself. Right, so what we're going to do now, we're going to just get all this out of here and remove the wheel, and first things first, we'll start by getting this wheel out of the way. Skewer out first. Try not to lose the spring. So we just take the skewer out, and now we're going to just remove the wheel. So that's going to be the lovely motor we're using. It's not light. No mistake about that. We're lucky on this one. This one comes with a cassette, so we haven't got to take a cassette off the upper wheel, which is nice. Right, let's see about getting this back on the bike now. Although we haven't got a tyre on there yet. Just seeing if it all slots in, or we need to make any adjustments. And that slots in lovely. Do try to get it down into the slots as much as you can. Sorry I didn't mention it before, but it did come with a tyre as well. It's a Kenda tyre, which fits on pretty snugly. A little bit of a fight to get it on, but yeah, got that on. As I mentioned before, it comes with its own cassette, and this is the controller over here. Comes in a nice little bag. As you can see on the controller, we've got voltage 48 volt, 1.1-4.2 V dual mode. Don't know what the hell that means, but hey ho, it's a controller in a bag, so that's good enough for me. I do know you've got to let it breathe when you are putting it on the bike, so whether it stays in a bag is to be seen. Unfortunately this kit didn't come with any torque arms, which I'm happy with anyway. I'm going to make my own torque arms out of a solid bit of steel, just to make sure, but I will put it all together anyways and see where we go from there. Did it come with two on either side? Yeah, there. Right, it does come with washers for the wheel, and you're going to need, that's quite important actually, because if you don't use the washers, it will rub here, which you can see. And I just gave it a dry one to see how it went on there. You could see that it's slightly touched it. So I'm putting 2 washers on the side with the cables popping out, and I'll play it by ear on the other side. I'm going to start with 1 on the cassette side and see whether it needs 1 more. I've already got 1 in place. And another thing I'd like to mention is this is a disc brake wheel. So as you can see, the 6 bolts here, basically there's like a little plastic washer that goes around. You can clearly see that that causes a problem, so that's going to get lodged, and the rotor that comes with it will go in place. Yeah, it has come already connected via the phase wires in the junction box there, so I'm going to have to undo that, pop this through the cable, run it down, pop it over here, and then set it in place. Yeah, I do know, try not to get any dirt on the outside bit of the rotor. If you're going to handle it, try handle it from the inside. The box, just make sure everything else is disconnected when going into the junction box, because obviously we're going to need to take this apart to get the rotor down the cable. Yeah, so a couple of Phillips head screws there, and as you can see, the phase wires are all connected here, color coded. That's an 8mm socket bit required. I've slightly loosened the first one just to show you, just like that. Try not to lose them. Just loosen it up. They're fairly easy to take off. Yep, and look at that, in no time everything's released. So I don't really want them to all come apart, but just remember where they were. Yeah, yellow, green, blue. Just make sure nothing touches itself, just to be safe. Yeah, I'll put them back on as they were, just so when it comes to putting it back together, oh, they're quite springy, so just be mindful of that if you encounter that. Yeah, so I think the best thing to do with something like that, just gently put the screw back on top. I do notice them popping back out, so it may be something you encounter. Alright, so now we're going to get the rotor on there once we remove this plastic washer. Right, so what we're going to do now is just going to pop this off. 6 bolts to undo. Just keep them close by because we're going to use them when we put the rotor back in place. As you can see, it doesn't take too long to undo all these, and they only came hand tight as well, so it's not a big deal. Right, adios. Let's get rid of this. Bye bye. Right, so here's the rotor, and here's the cable ready to go through the rotor. Just slide that through there. Run it down the cable. Mind you don't scarf up the cable on the way through. Put that in place. As you can see, it lines up lovely. Gently put the screws back in, just one at a time. We will tighten them up after, just get them in place as they should be, nice and tight. Just keep in mind, follow the same pattern just to make sure it's equally spread out. And there's the rotor on the wheel. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to serve the wheel up to the frame. I'm going to spread the frame apart slightly just so I can get the washers in there, and hopefully we'll get this wheel on in a sec. So putting the wheel on, going to be completely honest, it's not as straightforward as it looks. You think you can just pop it in there, bang the washers in, but no, because the caliper is a key part there. There's a gap down there by about 1.5 mil, nearly 2 mil, and you don't want the casing of the hub motor touching that, so that's quite tricky, and you'll have to do some adjustments on the bolts here basically, so the caliper moves back and forward. And what you want to do is make sure you loosen these, or just take it away whilst you put the hub motor in, the wheel on. And once you've got the wheel on, I've put one spacer on this side, and on the side with the cassette, as you can see down here, I've put in 2 spacers, 2 washers, yeah. So basically, another good tip is make sure you rotate the wheel in the right position, because you want this to come down the back part of the hardtail rather than loop around and then come back round. I'd prefer it that way really than any other way, and then we can cable tie this in a safe position so nothing gets touched and there's no damage to the cable. Alright. So what you'll find in this kit as well are washers that look like this. Now on my bike, I was going to put them on like that to stop the gap there, but I found that there's a little space in here which can basically accommodate this washer perfectly, so it's nice and tight to the frame as well, and it just sits in that little gap. So that's how I'm going to tighten up this one. By all means, if I'm doing something you don't agree with, by all means hit me up in the comments and let me know what you think. But that's how I'm going to tighten this one up. This side of the wheel, be very mindful, because you're going to probably want to get into the highest gear, and you're going to have to watch the derailleur here and make sure that's not touching either. By all means, try and adjust if necessary as much as you can. And down here, so on the opposite side, I've got this bolt, this washer basically the other way round, because it slots into a gap on the other side perfectly, but here it's just not working out on this side, so I've had to switch it round and put it that way, just to make sure it's a good fit. So I've just removed the bottle holder here, so we can work on fixing the battery bracket here, and just going to serve it up to check to see just how much room is available there. So what I've done is I've removed the bottle holder, and I will be using the bottle holder screws to mount the battery cradle, which is here. That's going to go into that position like that, and the battery will slot in up here. As you can see, there's plenty of room. Yeah, just to show you with it completely on, and that's how it's kind of look like that. So on with the battery. Alright, now we've got the bracket for the battery bolted where the drinks holder used to be. What we're going to do is try and do a bit of cable management with some cable ties. So we're going to get the wire from the motor itself, cable tied up. I've had to parallel one of the brake cables here just to make sure when rotating the pedals that it doesn't touch, and get some cables running up here. I did want to put the controller in here really, but I don't feel there's enough space here, but that'll be modded at a different time. And yeah, we'll see what happens with that controller. It may well, I might remove that and put the controller underneath, but at the moment I'm going to put the controller on the pannier rack at the back and see how that goes. I have given it a little power up just to see if everything's working correctly, and it seems to be working fine. So if you've got to this stage, what you want to do is put pedal assist on. I'll show you that in a moment. Right, what you want to do if you're going to add pedal assist, which basically looks like this, and it also comes with a magnetic disc. It's got 8 magnets on it. Do count the magnets, because when setting up the display it's going to ask you how many magnets you want on the bike. So that aside, right, start off by pulling the bolt out of here. A little bit rusty, I mean the bike's been sitting around for a while, but yeah, unbolt that with a Allen key, and then you want to do something where you remove the crank arm with a crank puller. That's the crank puller there, and what it does is it basically screws into there, and if you can just see the rod coming out of the center, basically what it does is it pushes on the crankset and pulls the pedal away from the bike. So let's do that. So slide or screw that in, and once you've got the crank arm all the way in, you'll notice the pedal starts to move. So basically, make sure you've got the crank arm, or the crank puller rather, all the way into the crank arm, so you don't turn no more. Tighten this bolt up at the end, and then you've got 2 choices. You can either pop an Allen key in there, which is I find quite hard, or get an adjustable spanner, or as you'd call it, wrench in America, and adjust that to the desired fitting. Tighten her on there. Yep, don't be nervous to put a bit of pressure when trying to pull this off, and you'll notice once you get to a certain point you can just turn it by hand. The pedal will be, the crank arm will become very loose with the pedal on it, and you'll notice it's starting to pull away. Then there we go. What I'm going to do here basically is, I've got no desire to take the pedal assist back off, so basically I've got some Gorilla Glue here. I'm just going to coat around the outside because it's not coming back off. Get the pedal assist. Secure it in place, let it set. Doesn't take too long. And we'll leave that for a few minutes to settle in. And move on to the magnetic disc, and that just basically slides on like that. It's also directional, as you can see, so pedals are going around that way. It's got arrows on there, if you can see that. Just make sure you put it on the right way around. Once you've got the magnetic pedal assist reader secured to the bike, I've decided to make sure it runs that way. You can have it in any kind of direction you wish. I've got mine like this, so it can run up the back of the seat post, or part of the frame here that accommodates the seat post to go into the controller. So what I'm going to do here also is, because I can see there's a fair bit of rust inside there, I mean, the spark's been out for a while. I'm just going to drop a little bit of oil in there, just for protection and to lubricate inside. I've left that for a couple of minutes. So what I'm going to do now is get the magnets, slide that on. You see there's a slight gap in between there. It's ever so slight, but it's just enough. So unfortunately, once I tried to put the magnetic disc on there, I found that it was touching. So I tried to bend that back a tad. I'll show you what I've done. Basically, I just tried to bend the top end of it back in a bit, but once I'd put the crank arm back on, it pushed the magnetic disc. Basically, it pushed the magnetic disc back even further, and it continued to touch. So you may encounter this kind of an issue. I mean, you might not, depends on what kind of frame you got, but on my frame in this case I'm having an issue. So what I'm going to do is, on the back of here you see two screws, so I'm going to unscrew it from that and just mount the magnetic reader directly to the frame and see how that goes, because the frame was at a bit of an angle. So I basically just resorted to a bit of glue, as you can see, just glued it in place, a little bit of hot glue. I'll put the disc with the magnets back on. You can see there's a nice bit of clearance. Screw the bolt back in. Get your Allen key back on it. Just do it hand tight. And that's the disc in place, the sensor in place, and the pedal assist ready to go. Now moving on to the handlebars. So I've got a twist throttle, full twist throttle replacement here. So what we're going to do is just going to pull that off, get your twist throttle in position. I mean, just temporarily put it in place until you want to wire it all up properly. The little Allen bolt there to tighten up, which we'll do, and then you're going to move over to your display. This is only an SW900, and here is the controls for it. So that will be mounted here on the bike, and I'll be back in a sec. Right, now you can see we've got the display in place. There's a couple of screws that go underneath, which you can easily get to. It's about a 3 or 4 mil Allen key bit. Got the controls, got the throttle, twist throttle on, and we'll be setting them up. Just got to plug the wires in. It's quite a fair bit of cable, to be fair. So if at this stage you wanted to do cable management, give it a dry run first and then see where that gets you, because as you can see, I'm still going to mount it on the back of the bike at the moment. Batteries in the middle, and yeah, shed load of wire there, really too much wire, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. And there it is, guys, all completed. 1500 watt motor, cable tidied up, trying to make it as clean as possible. Thanks for watching, catch you in the next one.